Hello, hello.
Hey,
Hey.
we decided to cut that intro music short just a second because we missed you all. We wanted to come back online really quick. For those in chat, how's everyone doing this Wednesday? Super excited to have you. For those who are joining us for the first time, this is Howdy Partner, where we bring on our AWS partners and they get to come and show off some of the cool stuff that they've been doing. And today we're joined by Bill, a veteran of the show, actually, from earlier. I guess was that last year or was that earlier this year? I can't even remember at this point.
Hey, I'm a two-timer. I was here last year.
Last year, that's right. Do you mind giving a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, I have been working at this company called SHI. Now I'm on a team called Stratascale, a company of SHI called Stratascale. We do cloud automation, DevOps kind of stuff. And I'm also a certified solutions architect professional. So we basically put out a lot of really cool code, and I've been doing software development for since I got out of college a long time ago. I worked at Verizon for a long time. So I've been in like small companies, big companies, and I've got some like really cool stuff to show you guys today.
For sure. I know last episode we did the tool set that you've been working on to help people with the CDK code and managing the organization of that kind of stuff. What are you doing? What are we doing today?
Okay, so last time I was here, we were doing something very complex. We were doing a Kubernetes cluster.
Right.
And it just seemed like it was very intense. And so this time we're going to kind of tune it down or tame it down a little bit and do something just really fun. We're going to start to play with Lambda and serverless and show you screen scraping and all that kind of good stuff.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That sounds pretty awesome. So when you say screen scraping, you mean like going in and like, taking screenshots or scraping the data from the HTML? What are we talking about there?
Well, I live on an island and there's a marina down the way and people are always under the boat and they're scraping at it, just getting the barnacles off and stuff. So, it's all about getting the barnacles off the screen.
Okay.
Hey, Taz, so before we go further, let me introduce myself.
Yeah, for sure.
So, hey guys, my name is Raj Shadri. I'm with AWS. So I had the pleasure of working with Bill from Stratascale SHI company on this blog that we are actually going to walk all of you guys through on using AWS Lambda with container image support, which is really, really cool feature of AWS Lambda. So we're kind of going to go deep dive into that. But before we go further, happy 4th of July, folks. Yeah. And let's get some fireworks, baby. Let's get some fireworks.
That's right. Anyone?
Where's the popper and all that fireworks that you promised? And of course, this is for the kiddos. So the lighter version of the fireworks.
Now, I understand it. If this demo works right, we're going to light off the fireworks in your house at the end for the grand finale.
Oh, that'll be right here on this wall. Just a big explosion. I'm sure the neighbors in my apartment complex will love it.
Yeah. So let's talk about what's fun. What do you guys plan for July 4th? I'm actually going to Chicago. Taz, what do you have planned? Bill, what are your plans?
Yeah. So for me, I'm headed to the West Coast. Going to spend some time in Big Sur, get some nature into my life, and escape the heat for a few minutes. If you all don't remember, I'm from Dallas, Texas, where it gets pretty warm, and so some of those, the coastal Pacific temperatures sound pretty nice right about now.
Hey, don't blame you. Bill, what are your plans?
So one of my good friends is actually turning 40 on July 3rd. So I'm going down and he's going to celebrate in Keys. So we're going to Key West.
Wow.
Hang out down there and come back on the 5th. Or Monday, whatever that day that is. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. What about chat? Anybody have any fun plans coming up to celebrate the holiday? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you all. And just keep things casual. One thing about this show is we do want to interact with you all. We want to get to know you all. And we hope that you can get to know us. And as we go through that, if we can learn some about AWS along the way, then all the better. So very cool. And yeah, Raj, thanks for posting in chat the blog post that we're going to be walking through essentially. So one question that I have for those who may be unfamiliar or kind of earlier in their dev experience, we have this thing called Puppeteer. Like just looking at the title, Puppeteer. What is that? Why would we use that?
So, like a lot of people in the business world use Selenium to basically automate testing, and it's a way to kind of pretend like you're a human, but not really have to get a human out there to test things. And so the Puppeteer, I think, is like kind of a play on that, like you're somebody that's controlling something, and I think the something is Puppeteer. But
Okay.
maybe Puppeteer, I'm not sure why it's called that, but it's a cool name. I like it. I like it better than Selenium.
Yeah.
For as far as names go.
Yeah, it feels, like you're kind of the guy in the back, behind the scenes.
I just watched The Godfather Part 1. I looked in the video and they have like the little puppet strings thing that he's holding there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So I think actually when I think of Puppeteer now, just the Godfather kind of controlling everything.
Awesome. Yeah, and it sounds like what we'll be doing today is controlling some traffic, it sounds like scaling and those types of things. So super excited about that.
So let me kind of talk about what the idea is here. So back in kind of to go over things, we're going to show you how to basically grab screens with a Chrome browser that you don't actually have like in front of you. Like it's one thing to have Chrome running on your computer. I'm sure everyone uses it and loves it and can go do whatever they want, log into websites, click around on them, edit stuff. And a lot of times when you have a website, you're doing unit testing already to just kind of like test little pieces of code that gets done in the CI/CD and the build process. But after things get deployed to either a development environment or production, it's kind of nice to have somebody go in there, do like user acceptance testing when they click around and they say, okay, yeah, this website looks like it's working with a quick inspection. I think it's okay. Like we didn't break anything here, because unit tests, they don't always like catch things being broken. In theory they should, but sometimes they don't. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes people write test scripts in Selenium and they kind of have Selenium go and like log in no pages and do your functional integration testing in there, make sure everything works, and then once all those tests pass, you go to the next spot. And so the cool thing about Lambda is you can actually fit a Chrome browser inside Lambda in headless mode, meaning you don't need to actually have it visible. It just kind of runs invisibly, but it still does everything that you could do in Chrome. And so Puppeteer works with that. They basically give you a way to script out what a human would do, but in code, like go to this page, load it, click on this link. Then when a page goes and shows you the next stuff, you can go and click on this form element and put in a name and hit the button. And that way you could kind of say, okay, every time that I release new code, I want it to go and basically go to that page, try to log in, try to click on another page, and once you're logged in that you should be able to go to and edit something and save it and make sure that the page looks how you'd expect it to. And you might set that and just, it'd be nice if you could just run that same exact test every single time you make one change in your code, if it was cheap enough and fast enough. And since you can fit Chrome browser in a Lambda function, you can kind of pull that off, because you could like have hundreds of tests, maybe thousands of different test cases that you want to test, and then have one test case run in each Lambda function, test them all in parallel, and then you'll have like all your testing done pretty much instantly, like maybe in 40 seconds. And then you can move on to the next step in the CI/CD pipeline process, which would be your actual deployment, or maybe somebody has to manually approve something or something. So in order to do that, the first thing it would be nice to do would be to be able to just take a screenshot, because if you got things in headless mode, it's invisible. You have no clue what's going on. It's hard to debug. You can kind of debug stuff on your local Chrome browser while you're running the code locally. But once you start putting in AWS and having it execute, it's real nice to just take screenshots of whatever this browser you can't see sees, so that you all of a sudden can see what it was seeing. So first, that's what we're going to do right now to get started. We're going to go over, put on the blog article, please.
Yeah. Let's see here. There we go.
So here, we put up an article, and it's attached to kind of a repo on GitHub where you can pull out this code and follow along if you'd like to. But it'll basically show you how to go and use this tool called Puppeteer. you go to pptr.dev, and you can see it's a node library which provides a high-level API to control Chrome or Chromium. And you can actually put it directly in a Lambda function, like in a layer, but we're going to have some fun since you can do it in a container now in Lambda. It's just a lot more fun to work with a container. It's so flexible. So we have Puppeteer basically running and Chrome running inside of a container Lambda. And you could also modify this just to do anything else you want to do inside of a container Lambda. And another beautiful thing, I was talking about Raj earlier today, now that they have App Runner, which allows you to run a container for longer than 15 minutes, and then you have Lambda, which allows you to run it up to 15 minutes, you pretty much can just be a developer, write your code, write your Docker file. If you can save money, try to run it real fast in Lambda and let it be on demand. And if you need something that's bigger or runs longer, then go ahead and put it on App Runner. Now you don't have to get like Fargate configuration and EKS configuration involved, and just be a developer and work with a pipeline and work with your code. So yeah, I think everything kind of is just really elegant doing it in a container, because let's say you wanted to move the container from Lambda to App Runner, and now you've got that same container. So you might as well just kind of standardize on throwing your stuff in the container when you do it on Lambda.
Yeah, and I think additionally to that, Raj is contractually obligated to talk about containers whenever he presents anything, if I remember correctly. Last time, you got the call out of being was it the container lawyer? I think that's what someone called you.
Yeah. Oh my God. No, I mean the concept here and more so the business use case for what Bill has actually laid out, right? It's very powerful, because if you want something, a quick task to go and execute something and get the job done, you always use Lambdas. Now, Lambda with the containerized world, we get all of this functionality that we can build in. If you're able to build a nice solid Docker file, right, this automatically builds the Docker file, pushes it into your own private ECR, right, where you can also scan for vulnerabilities and things like that. And then on top of that, we are able to use a fan out function like what Bill is going to walk you guys through, that we have laid out on this blog article, that goes and does an awesome job of scraping websites and things like that. Scraping website is just one small business use case for this particular blog article. But then you're talking about integration testing, which we are going to go deep dive on. And actually, that'll be a little teaser for the next blog article, actually. So, think about integration testing that we were mentioning earlier, right, where you click on a particular website and you log in and you go on to the next page and you click on a few other things, and that goes and does some correct option on your database or whatever, and you want to test that all the way through. Let's say you're a business and you're starting out a brand new site with all these functionality that you want to open up to millions of people. How are you going to do the integration testing, right? And this is a great way to vet that out. So there's a lot of use cases where this can be kind of tagged on top of it. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. So what I got up in here is a little diagram of what this thing's going to do. We're actually going to make two Lambda functions. One is going to be the invocation function, and it's going to basically fan out everything so that we can move things in parallel. And then the other function is the one that actually does the work with the Puppeteer commands. And so in this example, we have one function that goes and it asynchronously just kicks off a gazillion calls. And one call is going to just focus on CNN.com, one on Wall Street Journal, one on USA Today, one on Fox News. And you could do that up to however many concurrent Lambdas you have approved to your account. So you can go and move your default 1,000 up to 10,000 with a customer support request. And now you can go and launch that fan out and go grab 10,000 copies of whatever, run 10,000 tests simultaneously. They'll all run maybe 40 seconds. So 40 seconds later, you got 10,000 images.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought we were going to do a fireworks websites. We're going to go screen scrape all the July 4th fireworks websites. I'm sure they're probably running out of stock. I think.
Hey, you know what? Give me some. Go find some URLs while I'm talking, and then we'll go and swap out the news websites with the fireworks, because I think they'll make really pretty images to download from the bucket to see all the pretty fireworks instead of the news articles. And I like that. Or anyone, I guess anyone can find a firework URL. We'll go and swap it out in the show. We'll get the news article out and firework URL in.
Yeah, absolutely. The audience, I don't want to do the audience work, but
yeah. So if you have a URL that you want us to capture those screenshots from, put those in chat. It helps keep us honest, keeps us proving that this is indeed a live show.
If you're doing it live, it makes me nervous, man.
Yeah, well, go view it on your computers before you have me put it on the share screen. There we go.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
We don't want any weird websites, right? So.
Yeah. All right. So I went over to GitHub, and yeah, I'm logged in, and I have my settings set to dark mode, so that's why GitHub looks a little funny. If you don't have that set to your dark mode for GitHub, I highly recommend it. It's nice, kind of keep everything nice and dark so it doesn't affect your eyes too much. We're going to be heading over to the CRPM Lambda Container Puppeteer link, and this also is on the blog article if you were following the instructions in the blog article.
A little bit down, yeah.
Yeah, you would end up Git cloning from here. So what I did is I went ahead and I spun up a Cloud9 instance. If you were going to do this and follow along, you'd want to go, after spinning it up, into your EC2 section, go find that instance that's running, and go modify the volume that's mapped to it by default and increase it like a few gigabytes, because it's going to run out of space. So, and that takes a while. It takes like 10 minutes for it to finally get all resized so you can use all that new space. So you'd want to do that right now. But I already did that. So I went ahead and I cloned CRPM Lambda container, open terminal here.
And for people who aren't familiar, what does CRPM stand for? I know this is what we talked about in our last episode, but quick recap.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I work again for a company called SHI. It's been around a long time, and they have a subdivision, you could call it, like a company that's owned by SHI called Stratascale, and they focus on a lot of like enterprise style cloud consulting. And so we have a project that we made back before Stratascale existed called CRPM, and it's called Cloud Resource Property Manager. The idea behind it is, like, you have these resources in AWS Cloud. That's pretty much how CloudFormation works. And every resource you have, like an instance or a role, they all have properties. And managing your cloud is all really just about managing your properties, because you might have an EC2 instance of a certain size, like the certain size is the property, and now you want to make it bigger, so you got to change that property and make it from a micro to a small or a medium. So it's all about property management when it comes down to it. So Cloud Resource Property Manager is just a way that kind of helps you manage your properties of your cloud resources. It's basically in bed with CDK. CDK is AWS's wonderful abstraction layer. It basically allows you to render these archaic looking CloudFormation templates and just write beautiful, succinct code. And what I like about CDK is it's real powerful, which I like as a developer, but not everyone likes that. Some people like YAML templates and being able to define stuff in text files that are easy. So it's kind of like marrying the two, where let's pull out all of the static properties like t2.micro and put them in a YAML file, and just have one YAML file for each resource. So like one YAML file for an EC2 instance A, one YAML file for EC2 instance B, one for the IAM role, one for the instance profile, and that way you don't have any large file. You have like a bunch of smaller files that all have your static properties, and then you kind of glue all these static properties together with a little bit of actual CDK TypeScript, where there's different languages. And with that, then if you wanted to have it every time you spin up your stack, you want to prefix like the stack name in front of all your roles, then you can use CDK in the programming aspect there to kind of like prepend on names to a lot of your naming stuff. But then everything else, like t2.micro and that, and a good portion of the stuff that's static, that's just not going to change, go throw it in these props files that CRPM generates for you. And then you can kind of like just have, I don't know, like 90% of the time, maybe you can spend in YAML land, and 10% of the time spend it in programming land. Makes it good for organizing stuff, really good for if you're doing CI/CD and just having like code pipeline, watch a repo for changes, and you just want to make a little upgrade in the text file. So anyway, yeah, it's an open source project that we maintain. So what we're going to do here, just get pulled. We got this up to date. And inside here, it's pretty much broken down into 2 sections. So first, we have an actual application that we're going to do. And this application is what actually runs Puppeteer. So this is pretty much what you're going to be doing with Puppeteer. You're going to go ahead and you're going to start up a browser. And the browser is going to open up like a new page, a new tab. We're going to set it to wait 60 seconds to try to load that page. We'll set a size, kind of like if you were resizing your browser window and how big you wanted the page to look.
I think that's a huge call out there, because if you are doing these user acceptance tests, browser size will dramatically affect things, especially for pulling screenshots and stuff like that. So that ability is very useful.
Yeah, and you could go ahead and define parameters there that are passed in, and you could have it rerun the same test with different angles or different page sizes if you want to do that. And then you go to the URL, get the screenshot, go ahead and close it, and store the screenshot in S3. And then but this is going to be like what we start with for the time being.
Correct. Yeah. And so, Bill, you also want to mention that we had to tweak the size, the memory size, and all those things, and also the timeout factors and all that. So to get in order to get this kind of perfected, because initially when we ran this test, we had a lot of timeouts, and it wouldn't load the page and all those things. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll show you that in the infrastructure section. I'll open up some properties files from CRPM for the stuff that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So right now I just installed the stuff. I built the stuff. Now you don't need to do this that I'm doing here. Basically, when you actually spin this up with CDK, it's going to actually run the stuff in a container. But I always kind of like have fun just running some tests. I already have my dependencies installed right in Cloud9, so this will just work. So I'm actually going to run a test case that would be this test file, and it's going to go ahead and try to start a browser version, show me that it's been able to open, close it successfully. Yep, here we go. Test passed. We were able to create the page, close it, and everything's cool. All right, so this is good code. Now let's cd into the infrastructure folder. So inside the infrastructure folder, we also have a bin folder. This is the actual CDK app called Lambda Puppeteer. And then we also have the actual code. This would be your CDK code that kind of stitches together all the properties files. And then we have the properties files. So one thing Raj was just mentioning was originally when we published this article, we didn't have it kind of grabbing all the screenshots. Some of them would kind of time out before they could get it done. And so one thing I did is I kind of boosted up the memory size recently, which also boosts up the CPU kind of allocation. It was kind of proportional. And then I changed the timeout to give it a little bit more time. And one of the things we do back in the other file, we kind of like, this is a little bit of a buggy system, the way that Puppeteer works. And so one thing you got to do is you want to tell it to use a single process, because Chrome is very beautiful in that it runs a lot of different processes. But when you're running inside a Lambda, you want to keep it all in the one process. So you tell it to do that. And then you kind of want to put in try-catch statements. So you kind of make multiple attempts. You keep trying it. And then each time, if there's an error, you kind of log it, but you don't kill yourself. You kind of just try again. And usually after 2 or 3 tries, it'll finally be able to get through and do that. Puppeteer, I wouldn't say Puppeteer is super professional yet. I mean, like, you're probably going to have to use Selenium if you're going to go ahead and just want something that works the first time. But, you know, if you go ahead and you use things in environments like Lambda where it's not a big deal if they fail, you can just try again. And even within the Lambda, just try again. It actually works pretty good. I mean, once you can handle failures and work with that, you can do a lot of stuff real cheap. And so I think you could still pull off doing like 10,000 simultaneous tests. Maybe there would be quite a few failures for a couple microseconds along the way where I had to try a couple times, but it'd finally get it. It would work. So that's kind of the idea here, how to get this thing to do what you want it to. And so now we're in the infrastructure thing. We're going to go ahead and run the install on that. And we have a Docker file too. Let me point that out. And one of the things I like about the CDK deploy command, which is what we're going to use to launch this, is it's going to show us the Docker build output as we're going along. And that is really fun. You know what? Let me drop this thing here. And then we'll have code in the bottom, and then Docker file to look up at the top. Okay. So we just ran this. I like to build the code all the time. You might not even have to do CDK deploy, but it always makes me happy just to know my code is built. Or you could put like build watch on in another tab and just have it doing that.
Yeah, I usually do the build watch on the other one and then do the CDK deploy. So that way I can watch it for any errors,
Yep. And then, so now I'm at the point where I'm ready to launch the Bootstrap. Now, I already have my Bootstrap done, which means I have my CDK toolkit stack launched. And this is going to be able to kind of help us with the Docker file assets and stuff. So if you haven't done that yet, you'd want to go ahead and do CDK Bootstrap and fire that off. And that's pretty fast. It's just going to work. It's not going to give you any problems. And then you go ahead and do CDK deploy Puppeteer. So we'll go ahead and shut this to make it a little bit bigger. Go back to the Docker file for a bit. Yes, we like this stuff. Please do it. All right, so see this right here, how it's going and fetching stuff. We already have the layer, so that's good. If we go into Docker images, you can kind of see that I already have a couple images that have been pulled. You can see the CDK assets part of that. I'm using AWS Lambda Node.js. You can see that up at the top of the Docker file here, version 12. That's the basic starting image I'm using for my container for Lambda. And then if we go, yeah, that's pretty much what you want to see there. So then, yeah, we're going to basically take in the access key ID, secret access key, that for the region, and pass that and inject it into it. So this right here gets a little confusing. I just want to kind of explain this piece to people. If you are using Puppeteer and you go and you install that into a TypeScript project, Puppeteer actually will download a version of Chromium that is just going to work with Puppeteer. It works great. If you try to go off the beaten path and go use a Chrome that's installed, good luck. It might work, it might not work, but I definitely have found that it's not that easy to use that. It's a lot easier just to use the one that they have ready to use with it. But if you're trying to go ahead and use the one that they give you inside of this Lambda function container, then you're going to need some dependencies installed. And you could like sit there and figure out and calculate what are the dependencies you need, but then you're going to have to lock down your actual version of Puppeteer that you're using. And so kind of what I do, I install Chrome browser just to kind of get the dependencies installed, and then I don't even use it. I just basically do this just to get the dependencies installed so I can use the one that comes with it. So the way I do that is I install Amazon Linux Extras, install the EPEL, and then install Chromium. And then you're able to basically have all your dependencies that just make that other Chromium that works, that gets loaded with Puppeteer, it's all ready to go, work. So I've got that going.
That's actually a really good idea to do that, because I think that it's been a while back, but I was building something and wanted to use Puppeteer for something, and I just kept getting dependency errors over and over again, and trying to track down and figure out all of that. That was not so easy. So that's a good takeaway. Just install.
Well,
Chrome.
yeah, and I had the list of dependencies, and then I noticed that when you go to a newer version, they have different dependencies you need, and some you don't need anymore. And so I just started realizing, oh, it's going to be a pain. I'm going to have to be managing the Docker file every time I want to upgrade Puppeteer to a new version. And I don't know, that didn't seem like fun. So, yeah.
Hey, Bill, so you might also want to mention that this Docker file that we have is slightly different than the one that we have in the blog article. So just let people know that if they need to use the blog article, they need to probably go to the GitHub account and pull the latest Docker file. So a couple of those lines have changed, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of think nobody would really use this Docker file stuff here. I think they would probably just use the part that they cloned. But if they were trying to read this and get an idea how to do stuff, then they would see like this old way I did things. It was actually just downloading an RPM and trying that out. But I don't really like just downloading RPMs and installing them. I much rather prefer using yum install stuff that is through the package manager because I trust that a lot more. So that was why I kind of ditched that for the other method.
So we have a question in chat, which is why are we using the AWS credentials as opposed to a role in this Docker file?
All right.
We can use a role too. It's just that in this case, it was simple enough to just pass the credentials. But again, remember when you're doing this, it's kind of in your own account, right? And it's not really exposed to anything else and your own private ECR repo. So it's okay. But a more elegant way, I guess, you could use a Lambda Puppeteer role or something like that. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think that by default, when you're using a container in Lambda, these variables exist. And so if you kind of populate them, it'll just work. So I guess when I was following along the tutorials, just kind of getting it working, this method worked for me. So I didn't kind of like fidget with it to try to get the rule to work as well. But yeah, I guess you could probably do it that way. So now that we got this all going, let's head on over and check it out. We got Lambda Puppeteer created. We go to the Resources tab. We can see a couple fun things to open up. So let's go ahead and open up the bucket. It should have nothing in it as of yet. Okay, no objects. And then we have two functions. We have the invoke function and we have the actual Puppeteer function. The invoke one's going to kind of fan out and trigger all these other ones down here. Yep. So we'll open up him.
And that bucket, is that where we're going to be throwing the screenshots?
Correct.
Yeah. So the next step we want to do is we want to kind of configure a test. And we have like an example one here. All right, this is the time when we got to see if we have any firework websites to swap out news sites with.
Anybody in chat, go ahead and comment that. We'll go ahead and do the test with what we have so far, but if you want us to swap out anything, let us know.
Yeah, fireworks.
No, I'm looking at the chat. All right. We'll just use this for now then. I usually call my first and only test. I don't know what other people like to call it.
But fireworks as a website, Bill.
I go a little bit crazy and I do a lowercase t for my test name.
You like use less typing that way. I mean, you're very efficient.
You know, gotta save that pinky effort.
All right, so all this thing did is it logged out basically. Let's see if I can scroll over. Just logged out that for each one of the things that it invoked and triggered another Lambda for, it's going to basically pass in this URL as an event. Mm-hmm. So those are the ones that it fired off. And then if we go into actual this Puppeteer function, we go to monitor, viewing CloudWatch logs. You can see a bunch of these things here. So I like to kind of like, oops, not open a new window, open a new tab.
Getting lots of tabs.
Yeah, so every one of these is kind of a clone of itself. It's basically just your typical Lambda function that's working, and it's launched a container, or it's launched with the container that from that Docker file. It's trying to do that retry thing on error. So like right here, we had PRCTL set new privs failed. So it countered an error, and then it tried again, and then it worked the second time. So it basically started a headless Chrome, and it went ahead and stuck the screenshot in this location, and that was for the URL NBC News. So let's see how some of these other ones are doing. This one looks like that one worked flawlessly without an error for CNN.com. This one still going. I guess we'll shut this down. This one's done, so we'll shut this one down. This one looks like he's done. This one is done. This one looks good. This one looks good. This one might. Yeah, this one worked eventually. Tried a couple times, but it finally got it. This one worked. This one worked. See how this one's doing. This one worked, and this is the list of them. All right, so now we're going to head over to our bucket.
Yep.
So this time we got lucky. Like, not all the time will it take a screenshot of everything, but this time it got it. So we could go ahead and click into here, click download, then click on this. Oh, we can tell it's like this is Yahoo.
It's a big screenshot.
So this is the screenshot that it took. You pretty much can see Yahoo right there. And we could go down and try another one just for the fun of it. We could go back and go here and pick this guy. This one at the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, that's what I see right now.
Yeah, verified. That looks right.
All right, so now what we have is we have like a building block set up. So we have a way to take a screenshot, which is going to be useful because as a human, we like to be able to visually see what the heck is going on in a headless mode. And now we're going to kind of have some fun and build with that. So the next step naturally is you're going to say, well, I don't really want to just take screenshots of Yahoo and Wall Street Journal. I want to go and like use this for myself. So we're going to go ahead and use AWS technologies to go ahead and build a little Hello World app real fast. We're going to use Lambda function to do that, and we're going to use a load balancer. And then after we get that going, we have that page working, we're going to go ahead and kind of clone out this repo and do some changes to it. And we're going to go and repurpose it, add a little bit of code in there so that it'll go ahead and try to load our own page instead of these pages. And it'll load our own page a lot of times. And it'll go and see how many of those times there's a failure, when there's success. And if there is a successful test, we're not even going to like screenshot it because who cares? It would assume it worked. But if there's a failure that it finds, we'll go ahead and screenshot that. And then when we catch some of those, we'll go and open them up just like we did these news websites, and we'll see what they look like so we can see what the Lambda site or the Lambda function saw when it decided there was a problem. That's useful for debugging. So I'm going to go ahead and first get this thing going. So if we go into Lambda and we click create function, author from scratch, Lambda Puppeteer web app. Okay, we'll just call it app. And I will stick with version 12. Lambda Puppeteer app. Nothing special here. Now that we've got an app going, let's go ahead and put some code in there.
Yeah.
So they give you this to start out with, and what we're going to swap it out with is this little website right here that I put together real fast. And I shouldn't really say I put it together because I kind of just copied and pasted code I found on the internet real fast and put it together.
Hey, we'll take that.
Okay, let me close down stuff. I'm getting too many things open here. All right, so basically I got this function off the internet somewhere, get random int inclusive. It's going to give me a random number between 1 and 100.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I'm going to do is create, let's go ahead and just save this. Let's make an environment variable called error percent. Configuration. Make an environment variable called this. And let's say we want like 30% of the things that we do. Does anyone want to pick a percent? Like how many times do we want the web page that we're making to generate an error instead of because we're going to have it randomly generate errors and generate successes. So I'm thinking like 30, maybe 25% of the time we refresh the web page, we're going to have an error. Does that sound good?
Yeah, 32%, whatever.
In chat, we have 100%.
Yeah, we could do that because that would be a lot of fun, and we'll always see screenshots. But I don't know. We'll put it at 30 for now.
We'll do it for 30, and if we need, we can come back and.
All right. So basically, if it's a number between 1 and 30, it's going to go ahead and say it was a failure, and if it's a number between 31 and 100, it's going to basically say it wasn't a failure. And you can't quite see that here, but
yeah.
Let me try to click and drag it over some.
Okay, so while you're doing that, so just want to kind of take a step back, right? Kind of reiterate for some of the folks who might have joined here. So what we are trying to do here in this particular portion, which is going to be a future blog article, is kind of doing the integration testing, right? So where when you have a website and you're clicking through several different pages and you want to make sure everything is properly integrated and tested and made sure. So in this case, Bill is actually generating an error 30% of the time. So on the times that where it errors out, it's going to generate a screenshot, and the rest of the time when it's a success, it kind of goes through. So you want to capture those events and see where the issues are, so that way you can make sure you have a seamless experience when you're building a proper website or an application that kind of works seamlessly. So this is pretty important to keep that in mind. And Lambda, and with all this container image support, kind of gives you this seamless experience when it comes to that. So
right now we've got the working backend for a little simple hello world website. Each time I rerun it, that result number changes from like 79 to 69. If all these are above 30, so we're seeing success. Oh, here we go, result 2, failure instead. So we have that, and now what we're going to do is head on over to EC2, scroll down to load balancer, actually target groups. We're going to create a target group from a Lambda function. Call it like Lambda Puppeteer app, just like the other one that we had. We called it that. Hit next. Okay, fine. Web app.
Naming variables is the hardest part of programming.
Yeah, especially since I did this right before doing this. So. Okay.
Just barely.
I had the other one was called Lambda Puppeteer app, so we're using that one there, and then we're using Lambda Puppeteer web app is the actual load balancer. So we've got our Lambda version latest. We're going to go ahead and create target group. Now while I'm thinking about it, just because this is going to get confusing. Okay. All right, I'm going to make this smaller. Sorry, guys.
I'm the guy who uses the single letter variable names. I love it.
All right, so
as long as you don't need more than 26 variables, that is an
this
appropriate.
One is my old one, so I'm going to delete it. Well, let me try to delete it. Okay, I can't delete it yet because I have to delete the other thing first. Okay, Maybe a load balancer. Maybe I already got an existing load balancer, and I'll try to delete that. Hey, refresh. We're going smaller. There we go. All right, so Lambda Puppeteer app, we'll start deleting that now because that's going to get confusing. And then down here, try to delete Lambda Puppeteer app there. Then Lambda Puppeteer web app, that goes to Lambda Puppeteer app. All right, so that looks good. And that is the name of our thing here.
Oh, your fonts went too small, Bill.
Oh yeah. All right, 250 it is again.
Sorry.
So now, let me make sure I got that name right. So we have
web app, right? Or
I think it was app.
oh yeah, okay. Sorry, yeah, it said 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, 30. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we have Lambda, the app without the web there, and this one points to app without the web here. Okay. So, and then this web app, we have the web word in there makes it confusing, but that's okay. And so now we go to load balancers. We're going to create a load balancer, make it an application load balancer. IPv4 is fine for now. Leave it port 80. Throw it in like USD 1A for now. We'll give them 2. Who cares? Don't need that. Oh. Might as well keep it web app since the other one's web app. Lambda Puppeteer web app. Everything else stays the same. Configure security settings. Let me make this smaller. I hope
It's trying to use HTTPS. You know.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And then we'll just create a new security group. Just needs to do port 80. If you want to do HTTPS, then you got to get like the certificate manager involved and create one of those.
Yep.
You could do that if you want to get this even more spiffy. All right, target group. Lambda Puppeteer web app. It's all ready to go. Register targets. Review. Create. All right. Now we're going to wait for this thing to get active. So while that's going, it'll take a little while. We'll go back, and now's a good time, Raj, to actually talk some more. So that one takes about maybe 5 minutes, but I can actually show the code now. So going into the code, here is what I propose that we do. I basically took a CP-A and just copied Puppeteer, and after I copied it, I named it Puppeteer-2, and inside
bigger.
Oh,
Keeps shrinking on us.
I know, it's like,
yeah. One of the movies I liked as a kid was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So, so here I'm in Puppeteer 2, which is kind of a copy of Puppeteer, and in the bin folder, I've added a little bit of stuff to this now. So now when we get in there and we start the browser, make the new page, the first thing we're going to do is go wait for selector.status. And if we go back here and we look at the test that we were running before, and we just run that again, we take a look at it. I basically have this H1 tag that says test application, and then in the P tag I've got the result, and then in there in parentheses I have this strong tag surrounding the word success or failure. So what I'm going to do is try to get this word success or failure to know whether or not it's a success or failure. And this is where you could kind of modify it from here on out. Like, you don't have to look at like class tags. You can kind of just start using a lot of different crafty ideas and how to like snoop through the HTML source and kind of pinpoint the little piece you're trying to go after, that nugget you want. Because it's a demo, of course, I'm going to make it a little bit easier myself and just use a class tag like that. But this is what it would look like. You're going to wait for the selector, and that's just going to sit there and wait for the page to load and be able to find that. And it's going to pass that strong element into here, into this variable. And then you can go and use that element on evaluate to go and get this text content out of get the inside text content of that strong tag. And then we can go ahead and basically spit that out in a little log statement, web application status. And instead of just making a screenshot all the time, now we've kind of moved the screenshot up into this block where if the value happens to be failure, let's screenshot and see what it saw. But otherwise, we'll just let this thing exit and not bother taking up space in S3. And then you might want to also have a cleanup routine, set up like a cron job in the task scheduler to just go and fire off a Lambda once a day and go delete out all your old files in S3 that are like maybe over a month old, because by that time maybe, or archive them or something so that they don't just sit there taking up space. Or you can just leave them because they're probably not going to cost that much. So let's see how this is doing now. Still provisioning. Oh, no, it's active. Okay. So now, if we go to this, and we load it in the browser, now every time we refresh this, and let's make this bigger too. Let's make this really big. 500% is as big as it gets.
That's good. That's better. I can see now.
Yeah, every time we refresh it now, instead of just firing off the Lambda function, now we can kind of close this. Now we can just view it here. And so we got a real web page.
Yeah, this is a little nicer to look at.
This on the internet, I'll just send it in the message right now. There you go. You guys have it. So anyone out there can actually click on this right now and see the same thing that I'm seeing. It's live.
I'm going to be doing that.
So now the next part we're going to do, now we have the fake website running, we're going to go ahead and have this modified code go ahead and, like, instead of having that big bracket of 10 different news websites or 11 different news websites, now we're just going to put the same website a bunch of times. So let's go have some fun with this.
My first try resulted in failure. What does that say about me?
You're 1 in 30.
I'm 1 in 30.
Hey, you should buy that lottery ticket, Taj, today.
I know. 22 is my number.
Oh, wow. Hey, you never know. That's pretty good. So I clicked on it a bunch of times, Bill. So there a bunch of success and failures.
This time I'm just going to go right into the infra. Let's just get it going. What I did in this, I kind of renamed everything -2. So like if I go inside the actual application, inside the infra, I mean, I go inside the bin folder.
Yeah.
Then I have Puppeteer 2, Puppeteer -2, so it'll not collide over the other Puppeteer that I have.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right. Get this going. And then CDK deploy. If anyone ever wants to know how do you see what can you deploy, you do CDK ls, and then it'll tell you. So in here I should see Puppeteer 2. Yep. CDK deploy Puppeteer 2.
Yeah. So a lot of great resource on CDK, on how to learn CDK and things like that. So it's amazing amount of resource that they put together. And even on Twitch, I think there's CDK sessions all the time that I see. It's amazing.
Yeah, both on the AWS channel and otherwise.
I'm always glad because I really like to try to keep everything AWS centric when I do my work for AWS, because I don't know, I kind of look at AWS like Walmart. Like Amazon is kind of like the place to get cheap goods, and they have that methodology. They've kept true to it for so long now. I kind of don't think they're going to change. So you kind of look at like AWS is the Walmart for pricing, and I don't know if that's the truth, because you see a lot of other places they jack up the prices, and then it's like you get in cheap and then it goes expensive on you. So I just want it, whatever they give me, I just want to use it because it's going to stay cheap.
If
Bill,
anything, we've had price cuts, I know, on several services.
Yeah,
So-
it seems like what you do is you come up with a service and you kind of lower the price as time goes on, and then you make new services that are like abstraction layers above those that cost like higher amounts of money, and then those probably start falling. You keep trying to find new, more advanced, useful things that package those together, and then those prices fall. It's like, I like that model. It's not a scary model for me at all.
There you go. That's the
So
model.
if CDK is from AWS, then I want to use CDK. I've noticed a lot of prices going up lately. Like, I'm getting these emails of different people raising my rates on stuff. Like, I just got one on QuickBooks recently, and I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah, inflation, man. I tell you, it's been crazy, right? So lately, a lot of inflation with all the COVID stuff happening. But how long does the Puppeteer 2 stack take, Bill? I mean, that's at least a couple of minutes, right?
Oh, it looks like it's almost.
Bing!
That's it.
Like 4 or 5 minutes, I guess. Yeah.
You just have to ask, and then it'll be done.
There you go.
It'll take as long as it takes until you ask, is this done yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so we got our application. I'm going to get this URL out here. And then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to shrink this down. Go into here. Open up this test.json. This is the old URL I was using a while ago, and we'll replace it with a new one. So that is the new one. Just to make sure again, paste it in there and fire it off. Okay, yep. All right, we're done with that now. Then we go ahead and remove those. And we'll go ahead and plop this in here 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, we got 10. And then we'll do this 10 times, and it'll give us 100. Actually, we'll put a comma there.
Yeah, no comma.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Take out the last comma. So now we got a nice little test case where we're going to do 100 tests in parallel. And basically the tests are being simulated by just the fact that there's a random number in the actual website. But if you're really doing this, you wouldn't have a random generator of errors and successes. You'd actually just have one website, and then you would go and try like 100 different tests. And just like we had that one code file that had the little script there, what you want to do, you'd have like maybe 100 of those files, like one on how to log in, one on how to change your username, one how to do this, one how to do that. And let me just get this.
I mean, the whole beauty of this whole thing, Bill, is, again, you're able to compress so much in such a few minutes, you know, or even seconds, I would say, because you're able to do this integration testing that you can do. I mean, literally, you're hitting 100 URLs in a matter of seconds, you know.
Taz, man, I'm putting a small T for you, man.
Thank you. Something that I've got a question on now that I've seen 100 lines in a test, which is probably longer than I've ever put in a single Lambda test. I wonder what the limit is.
We tried like 1,000 back a while ago, but I will say, like, if you have 1,000 things going on, I mean, just keep an eye out. If you go up to 10,000, you might start seeing money that's not pennies anymore. You might start.
That's true. Very, very quickly.
All right, you know what? Let's have some fun here since we're on the show. Let's go back in here and put in a couple more of these suckers.
Wow, you're just ramping it up right now.
All right, so we got that's 100, 200, 300, 400. We'll do like 500 out of that.
That works.
He's going to break it now. You're going to break it.
All right, 500. And no, you can't break it. It's AWS.
There you go. That's exactly.
All right. So, so right now we got Lambda Puppeteer 2 bucket. It's going to work the same way. There's going to be a screenshots folder. But this time we're only going to see things appear there whenever there's a failure. And when there's success, we're not. So let's go ahead and fire this off.
Oof.
So now we fire this off. It's doing the fan out. It's invoking and triggering 500 of those other suckers. And they're going to be kind of fighting each other because like 500 of the web pages are going to be, or the web page is going to be using 500 lambdas, and then the actual invocation is going to use 500. So we got this thing. Let's see what it looks like in the log.
Yeah, how many of those are failures, right? 30% of them?
Yeah, it should be. So, yeah, it looks like about 500 if you look at even older things. It's like this would have been like one of the URLs. This would be identical, going to the same URL. So we got those. That looks good. Now, let's go back to CloudFormation and go to the actual Lambda Puppeteer function. And we'll go over to the monitor section just to get a quick link to CloudWatch. And then we can start inspecting what some of these look like. So we got over 100 log streams. That's what we'd expect. Let's just start opening some random ones. We'll open up this. We'll open up this. Open up this. Let's see what this one was. This one was a success.
Yeah, close that out.
This one was a success. Ooh, this one might be a failure. Oh, no, that was a success. Ooh, we got
Screenshot.
one. So here we had a failure, and it went in here, and we had like ends in 35107.png. 35107. So let's go into our bucket. Okay, where'd it go? As we can see, we actually have quite a few.
Looks like the numbers add up. 148 sounds right, about 30% of 500.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And then we'll try to find that. Oops. That's not what I want to do.
That's not the one.
It wasn't there. Okay. Well, maybe we'll actually do screenshots. Oh, where's my bucket now? Here we go. No matches.
Let's see. I think you're already in screenshots. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So here's one of the happy campers. Download him.
I totally agree with that comment. You need AI-based copy and paste these days. Why can't the computer just know what I'm copying? Why can't it just read my mind?
Yeah, there was such a function, right?
Yeah.
So basically, like when that particular function was running and it called that same URL that everyone else could trigger right now on their own browser, it happened to see this. It saw test application result 16 failure. And so like you can imagine how you were trying to like have your script log into a screen and it had like some kind of weird looking screen that wasn't the one you usually would see and expect as a human, like something happened when the page was rendering and is broken looking. Then you would see that broken looking page right here because it's pretty much just using Chrome browser just like you would see. And that way you would kind of be able to get in there and be like, oh, okay. So that's just some fluke that I don't care about. I don't have to do anything. But if you saw like another kind of thing where the actual page looked differently than you were expecting, you would be like, oh, that's right. I changed the page and I forgot to update my test. And so it's always going to break and it's going to be looking bad now. So you could kind of see things that are let you know whether you need to do something or whether you don't need to do something. I guess technically you say you always need to do something because you probably shouldn't have any bugs. But this code, I think, is pretty fun to get people started. Raj has some interesting ideas of what you could do with it that he was talking with me about. Certainly, I don't expect everyone on this call would be that interested in testing their own code. Their minds might be running a little bit past that and like, oh, I have lots of things on the internet that I would like to weasel my way through and do things with, and then save screenshots of it when it goes wrong, and then like, oh, I'm trying to load this and I got a connection denied error. So I'd like to be able to see that to know that, oh, that's what happened. But yeah, you basically can just take this and run with it and go and start having at it. And I use this on my own for other things, and I actually walk through multiple pages with it. So what I would suggest doing is what you do is you can see the actual screenshot is saved in this constant variable, and it's a buffer. And so you don't need to like save it in the S3 bucket. You could just leave it in memory here, and you could load a screenshot when you first start, just like I'm kind of like logging along the way, like web application status, outputting that to the log and outputting the screenshot location. But you could like save this first screenshot in memory in this function while it's running. And then after you do one thing, save the next screenshot. And after you do the next thing, save the next screenshot. After you navigate to the next page, save a screenshot. And if you make it all the way through without a problem, just let the function end and clear out all the memory. You didn't waste any S3 bucket space. But if you do see a failure, now go ahead and save a ton of screenshots to S3 so you can see like the whole thing. Like, okay, the first page looked good, and then I got the second page that looked good, and the third page looked good, but I got to the fourth page, and that's where it looked weird and didn't look like how I wanted it. And you might even want to output the source code of the page and put that in the S3 bucket, and you'll be able to see, okay, this is what the page looked like, this is what the source looked like, and you'll be able to kind of debug things and then go push up your new version of your code for Puppeteer scripting, and then you'll be able to have that run again and see how that comes out. So
yeah, makes sense.
That's pretty much my spiel.
I would say that to the audience, wait for our next blog on this, and we'll have a nice cleaned up version for you guys to follow step by step. So just hang tight. We'll clean up all the stuff in here on this Puppeteer 2 Lambda function. So yeah.
Yeah, so I just posted in chat there the link to the blog post, and if you scroll down part way through the blog post, you'll be able to, the actual repo is listed there.
Okay. Somebody asked for the,
Let's see.
Yeah, I'm going to paste that one.
Yeah, perfect. So there's the direct link to the
I pasted it already.
The repo. Perfect.
Cool.
And we have another question here, which maybe throw to you, Bill. When would you recommend using Puppeteer versus Selenium?
So one thing people could try doing is actually putting Selenium in a Lambda function container and using that with their existing tests. I think this kind of just goes back to sometimes it's kind of nice to just jump on whatever is new and shiny. And right now, it seems like Puppeteer is kind of new and shiny, and it's a lot of fun. So it's more like that, you know, it's just kind of like where the fun's at, in my opinion. Selenium's been around forever. So I guess if you have been using them forever, you might want to stick with it. But Puppeteer really just marrying Chrome and basically just being the puppet that controls Chrome. Maybe that's why they call it Puppeteer, because it just controls Chrome. It could be like sure. Chromateer. Chromateer would be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have so much fun with it. I love writing code in Puppeteer's language, and TypeScript is just really fun to use, and it's just a pleasure. And once you get an example of how to do it in AWS Lambda function, it becomes dirt cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And
so it sounds like a classic it depends answer. There's no, it's not really, it's hard to make a call one way or the other. If you're already using Selenium and that's the tool that for work or whatever you're using, then probably continue using it if that's the easiest pathway forward. But if you're looking to try something else, shake it up a little bit, Puppeteer could be a great option.
Yeah, and I've tried like shrinking down the size of the Lambda function, and depending on your app, because if you're trying to load giant news websites full of links and images and stuff, you're probably going to want to boost up your memory, and that will cause a little bit more cost. But you can kind of be a little bit of a miser if you have like a website that's not too loaded with graphics, and just try to really shrink down the memory as much as you can and see like how small you can get that, and then you can really cut your costs down if you're doing this tons of times.
Sure. And so it sounds like follow-up question. If you're a TypeScript shop, would you recommend Puppeteer?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this is all on TypeScript anyway. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be good because like if you had like an Angular project or something and you had your unit tests in there that were already running when you do the CI/CD process every time you put your code and merge it in the master branch or whichever branch, and then you have that already running, you might as well just like get another test added after that that's like just going to actually log in and try it. And I like that because like when I used to work at Verizon, we had like this giant website internally that had tons of features, and it was like one of those giant buildings almost where you don't go in some rooms that often. And so you make like some web page that does some stuff, and then like you did that 6 months ago, and it's not getting used that often enough to get feedback from people that it broke. And then like 6 months later, you go in there and you find it was broken, and like somebody broke it 4 months ago because they made a change and it happened to break your page. And like if you don't catch that with a unit test, then I mean maybe at least you could have had this test catch it, like a real life, let's do a mock human and pretend we're a human. And that one should definitely find that my page got broken.
Yeah, and just integrate that as an automated test so that you can go back to that S3 bucket, you know?
Yeah, and I think like if I remember correctly, I think we used to have like if you had the Selenium thing running tests, it could literally take hours to get them all done when you had a project that was around for years. And so in that case, you probably would try to like move it with Selenium into the Lambda function. But imagine that you had like you upped your concurrency to 10,000 to the console portal for the help center, and then you had like your like 800 different Selenium tests you've written over the years, and now you're just going to run all 800 of them at the same time on 800 different Lambda functions, and maybe get all 800 tests done within 40 seconds to a minute, depending on how many pages it clicks through for a given test. And then now your CI/CD process isn't going to wait hours to go to the deploy step. It's just going to get done in like 40 seconds and then be ready for the next step. And that's what I like about it. You got like build a gigantic project over time. I mean, you don't have to stick with Puppeteer. You could do like some people want to use Selenium tests, some people want to use Puppeteer, somebody uses something else that comes along next that I don't know of yet. And they just build it over time, and you put it in containers, so maybe you don't even upgrade them. Maybe you just leave them buggy and old from 5 years ago, and you just let them collect over time, and then you just, you kick them all off, up 10,000 of them at the same time, and no matter how many more test cases you write, you're always getting that CI/CD pipeline finishing at the same exact time every time.
Yeah. One additional question, and I don't have any hands-on experience with this one yet, but we do have, I know the containers, is it containers from the Couch show? I think that they've done some introduction with it, but I'd be curious, Bill, have you played around with AWS App Runner much yet?
It's funny.
So, I was asking Raj if he told me about it actually recently, because I was upgrading CRPM, and every time I like upgrade it and get all the new features and CK installed in the CRPM, I was looking at like, what's App Runner? And then I looked in the App Runner, I was like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for. Now I can basically run a container longer than 15 minutes, but not have to configure Fargate or EKS or ECS. And so I definitely won't, like, in my future, I plan to, whenever I need to like fire up a service and collect streaming data, I want to use that. So
yeah. So just an intro, right? A quick intro, like you said, Taz. I mean, there's containers on the Couch that they have done a App Runner session on. But basically, App Runner is fully managed service, right? That makes it so easy for the developers to take their to quickly deploy containerized web applications, right? And also not worry about the infrastructure. AWS does all the heavy lifting, right? We don't need to worry about, hey, is this going to land on ECS Fargate, or is this going to run on EKS Fargate, or wherever it is, right, on the backend infrastructure. It automatically builds and deploys the entire web application, does the load balancing for you, does all the encryption and things like that. And you're also able to scale up and scale down automatically to meet meet your traffic needs, which is where, from a cost saving standpoint, that is going to be really phenomenal as well. So already have several ideas on building something like this with the app runner. So I'm going to run it by Bill, and we'll probably have future Twitch sessions for sure on app runner. So yeah,
Sure.
just
since I don't work at AWS, I get to like throw you my ideas of what I want there to be like as a developer. I just want one thing called Lambda that has containers, and then I want to decide my Lambda can run 2 years or 1 second, and it can be a little bit of memory or it can be a ginormous. I can attach a volume to it or not. I just want to like think about my Docker file, think about my code, and then not have to worry about how that URL ends up working behind the scenes. So that's all I want to think about. I just want to think about code, think about the repo and pushing stuff into it, and then have it tell me if it's deployed fine. If not, I go make another change and fix it. And that's all I want to think about: code, writing code, and having it get live.
And we're definitely getting closer. I feel like, year over year, things have gotten closer to that goal.
Yeah, App Runner kind of gives me the Lambda that runs longer, but it's just more expensive because now you got a real thing running that's like, I think at least $20 a month or something. So yeah, it's getting closer. Just it would be really cool one day when you get that Lambda pricing, let me run it for like 5 days straight. So you could start it up on Sunday night and shut it down on Friday night and just pay for that duration. You could do that with probably anything like App Runner, just turn it on, turn it off, but you're still going to have to probably think about it more than just simply firing off a Lambda. And Lambda's all over the place in the console. You can look at how we did it. Load balancing, you just hooked it up to a Lambda.
Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, again, different use case for the app runner. So definitely a lot of potential there. And right now, App Runner runs, the infrastructure behind it is Fargate, right? So, and that can change quite a bit depending on workloads that are, whether it's going to run on ECS or EKS. There are a lot of possibilities that are being talked about. So, yeah, please watch the session on Containers on the Couch on App Runner. Definitely, there are some awesome demos already on YouTube as well. So take a look at it. We'll definitely have a session on App Runner with some cool running applications soon. So
yeah, that's totally awesome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And then are there plans for App Runner to add integration into GitLab, Git repos? I'm not sure if anybody, Raj, do you have any insight into that? I
know that was already talked about, Taz. I don't know if it was already, but I think there is a way to hook up GitLab, right? You mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there are already some talks about it. I think GitHub is already on. I think GitLab will be there soon. I think so. Yeah.
I don't think you have to worry about that too much because you could probably use a little CI/CD script inside of GitLab with your AWS credentials to go weasel your way through the SDK and fire off stuff in the AWS land. So you can kind of already trigger like you could probably trigger a Lambda from GitLab that does everything you want to do.
Correct. Yeah, and those are fairly easy integration. It's going to be GitLab, GitHub.
Yeah, you could put like a Lambda function behind API gateway and have GitLab call that endpoint after like an event happens, and then from there, you inside your Lambda inside AWS account, you can make it actually like do all your whatever you want it to do.
So yeah, I guess in summary, there are some ideas around it, and so stay tuned. And another thing
I know
too.
why they want a GitLab, because GitLab has GitLab runners, and they wanted to use something with the word runner in it, like GitLab runner and app runner.
It's runners everywhere, right?
That's right. Just keep the terminology consistent. It's the runner stack, right?
Go.
We need a database with the name runner in it, I guess.
If you want your application to be healthy, you need them to be running with the runner stack.
That's right. Got runner DB coming up. But yeah, great questions.
You might want to patent that name.
No. I know. Now that I've
cool.
said it live, that's the biggest mistake I could have made, is say it live in front of the internet. So now it's lost.
I'm pretty sure that the domain name's already taken at this point.
Yeah, check that out, right?
That's right.
GoDaddy.com. Let's check it out.
Hey, we can have a Lambda function which actually goes and checks out all these different web URLs to see if they're registered or not, right? How is that, Bill?
Oh, dbrunner.com is already taken.
Oh, I missed my chance. Oh, here's a good question. And thanks, Rudix World, for putting this in. Bill, who is SHI?
So SHI, basically, it started out as Software House International, and they were selling software back in the day, and it turned into a very large software licensing business where we provide a lot of like Microsoft Windows licenses and different kind of licenses for desktop software and other actual hardware too, servers and stuff like that. And relatively recently, like it's very, high volume, low profit margin, like really good deal. Like we hook you up with great deals. But we're trying to take some of the expertise that we have and also not just help our clients out with different solutions such as like software and hardware in that regards, but we're trying to give them also assistance with the new age with cloud computing and stuff like that. So Stratascale in particular, we're really the consulting division for cloud consulting within the SHI umbrella, and that's pretty much where I fall.
Fantastic. And I'll put in chat your all's website so people can go and check it out. If somebody wanted to engage with you all, what's the best way to do that?
If somebody would like to, I'd be glad to basically send people to the right place, so they could go ahead and email me, and I'll throw my email address in there.
That's my Twitter handle right there. I put it up.
So you could kind of shoot me an email, and then I would forward it out to the right place. And if anyone is interested in using the CRPM as well, go ahead and reach out to me, and I could help get you started with it. The advantages, I think, are you're going to be able to really scale out a large software project with it. So if you're going to build out a really large infrastructure, rather than kind of just build it all in the code files, it'd be nice to kind of set it up into hierarchical folders with different property files within those, so that like you might get somebody that builds it initially, but then eventually over time they'll move on to another project and somebody else comes in. They have to have a fighting chance of being able to figure out what can they change and not break everything, or like how can they change the piece they're trying to change. And by breaking this down into a large project down to really small bite-sized files and in intuitive folder structure names, I think they have a fighting chance of maintaining a long-term project. So
cool.
Very cool. Well, great.
Right. Well, let's wrap it up.
That's right. Well, we so appreciate everybody who was able to jump on, hang out with us for the last little while. If you are just now joining in, and you here at the end, I definitely recommend go back to the beginning of this. The video on demand will be available for you, and watch what we built, or what Bill showed you how to build here, which was a way to very, very quickly scale browser-based testing using Lambda, Puppeteer, and those tools. And so definitely go back, watch it. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, and if anyone builds anything cool with Puppeteer and you like have something cool to show me, I'd really like to see how you kind of morph the code that I handed you out. Like if you're going to go and use the container in Lambda and do something fun with it, I'd love to hear about it, unless it's like closed source and you don't want to share. That's understandable.
But yeah, absolutely. We'd love to build the community, and so reach out to Bill, reach out to us, and we'd love to hear what kind of cool stuff you're building with it. And so then the last thing that we have to decide on before we close things out is, and I think Bill, we did this last time, but we have our 3 sign outs. We have y'all come back now, happy trails, and giddy up.
I think you're forgetting one thing.
What am I forgetting?
You got read the fireworks, man. The grand finale.
Oh, the fireworks. Oh, I forgot to launch them on. You know what I can do? Here we go.
Literally, I cannot do this right now. It's raining and it's thundering, Bill. I don't know.
There. Now I've got a red background.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Toz took over. He helped you out, man. You're good.
There's the fireworks for the end of the episode.
Bill, where is your fireworks?
You know, I thought I had them. I
Fingers.
checked the box and they were all out. It was just sawdust, you know.
Hey, Toz, I love your background right there. So that's all. Ready to go.
Yeah, I have for those who are curious, why not just, I have the lowest tech color solution that you could possibly think of. Like it's really just lights with like a piece of plastic that I put in front of it. That's how high tech I get around here. So it's fun stuff. But yeah, again, thanks for coming. And I haven't said giddy up in a while. That feels like the closing for today. So on the count of three, let's get try and get a coordinated giddy up. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Giddy up.
Yeah.
We'll see you all next week, same time. Bye.
All right, see you guys.